All right, Carl, as Nikki just made mention, we got to keep our faces this far away from the mic.
Gotcha.
So here's the question. Do you know where it should be, or should I put a mono loop around your earballs and around this mic? You good?
I'll probably forget and back up.
Then we can probably take our headphones off and we're all good, right?
I bet I get all animated and back off of it a little bit.
What do you think, Nick? Loop mono?
Jesus, you guys are too old for me.
What if I just kind of kick back and do this number?
That'd probably work.
How's that?
That'd probably work.
Right there.
Do the Billy Joel.
Wait, can I do this? Can I hold a cup of Pilar in one hand and a mic in the other?
Yeah. Anyway, Carl, we've been friends for a long time. We're going back, I don't know, I'd say early 2000 when I had my fishing show. You were a camera boat operator for me. I think John Glorieux found you to work with us.
Yeah, that's right. It was, I don't remember when your show started, and yeah, I don't remember what year that was.
I think it ended near the early 2000s. I think I had it before then because it lasted for 7 years. Anyway, we've been together a long time.
Right.
We fished, a number of different locations. You're getting ready to go to Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I try to leave this coming Friday. Yeah.
What a special place that is.
Oh, Louisiana's great. When it's on fire and the weather's right, it's really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, post-COVID, what kind of issues are you seeing over there? And you get the hurricanes that have destroyed a bunch of the, places where you stay.
Well,
has that been an issue for you guys?
Finding a place to stay is an issue because it sounds like all the workers have everything taken.
Oh, for the rebuild.
Yeah, for rebuilding.
Right.
So any place in Houma was busy. So we've always fished we fished out of Venice one year, my first year, and it was pretty tough. We had weather issues. It blew a lot. We had one day that was spectacular that it was slick calm.
Right.
We just got lucky. We found one spot and fish came by all day long. So we were sold. We had to try it again. The next year we went to Cocodrie and it was just okay. Our first day was okay. The weather came around and the wind just blew out of the south a little hard. It got deep and it got hard to find fish and see them, and the water was a little dirtier. The next year we went to Cocodrie and the wind blew out of the north, and we had 6 days of north wind, crystal clear skies. The water was low, it was crystal clear, and it was like easy to find fish, and it was spectacular fishing. So that's what we're trying to replicate that, but it's not easy to pick your weather when you have a limited amount of time to go out there
especially in Louisiana. The weather's so dicey over there. Nikki, you can attest to this. This is probably one of our greatest fishing trips, having fished around the world I don't know how many times. When you hit Louisiana correctly this time of year for the big redfish, there's nothing like it.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's completely different than the Everglades or Flamingo. Don't get me wrong, that's fun too, but just to see the size of those red pumpkins laying up in the flats and cruising the banks, you're going to get a bite.
Oh, yeah.
And it's exciting. It's not just a little redfish. It's a lot of them can be real trophies.
Oh, yeah.
Every day you see a fish of a lifetime. Now, do you still have over there the same type of issues we have elsewhere where everything's pretty crowded? Once you get out there, it's hard to find places to fish? Or is it so open and so vast that you don't have that kind of an issue?
Well, we went to some real common spots where everybody is doing the popping cork thing. And that was real busy. There was a lot of boats in there, the bay boats and all, just the whole everybody, but that's real easy fishing. So I think a lot of people do that. When it came to the sight fishing and fly fishing, it wasn't that bad. Cocodrie, we were by ourselves pretty much the whole time. You see some boats around, but yeah, it wasn't like we were fighting for spots. We did see people fish some of the same spots that we had fished that we knew must have been some spots because other boats would show up there. But it's a big, vast, wide open area, and it's probably because of the islands. I don't think you can track people as easily as you can in Biscayne Bay or down in the Keys.
So many corners and little wiggle spots.
Yeah, you just get out of somewhere. You're out of plain view all the time, pretty much.
But this is why I love you, Carl, because you're a full-time professional fishing guide, and every day or any day you have off, you're fishing. You're going there not to guide.
Yeah.
You're going there to fun fish. And you just love it so much that it rubs off and we can see it. And it's always a joy to have you on our boat because we know how passionate you are about the sport and about fishing.
I appreciate it. I always tell everybody all the time, you don't be a fishing guide because you need a job. You be a fishing guide because you can't get enough fishing. And then you're willing to take other people and show them that and show them what you see and know, and you can make money doing it, because if you want to be out there that much, you have to get paid, or you have to have some other source of income to be out there that much. And so that's basically where I went to, was that if I'm going to be out there, I got to get paid. So I have to keep my nose to the grindstone and really focus on finding fish. And yeah, so that's how I got, really.
Well, your whole life has been fishing. From what I understand, your grandfather was a fisherman. At a young age, at the tender age of 10, you had your own Jon Boat with a 4-horsepower engine.
Yep.
Tell me about the early years of Carl Ball in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, I think it was my grandfather who was always my biggest inspiration. I mean, we talked the most about fishing, and he fished a lot up in. They were from New Jersey. My great-grandfather owned a restaurant up there, so they came down to South Florida and stayed in Boca for a bunch of years in the off season when it was wintertime up there, and nice down here. And I guess eventually they brought their boat down, and my grandfather had named the boat AWOL. And it was, their last name was Loa, so he just thought it was kind of neat to spell it AWOL, Loa in reverse. And it had less to do with the military than it did with just my family name.
Do a lot of people ask you about that? Because when I first knew of that name, I didn't have that connection. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And how many people ask you,
a lot
of your
people
clients,
do.
say, how'd you get this name? Is it from, I ran away from society?
Yeah, well, I always just looked at okay, I'm AWOL from home, my wife, I'm just AWOL. I'm absent without leave. I am out on the flats fishing somewhere or something, So
what's more prevalent, that or the last name of your grandfather?
I didn't. I'm not a very creative guy. I just don't come up with these great ideas tail, bone fishing, or shallow water something.
That's too trite and easy.
It's just, that explains it all what you do. No, not me. My accountant said, look, you need to get incorporated. I need to know a company name. Let's get this done. And I went, okay, well, the family name was always AWOL, the name of the boat. And I went, okay, let's just call it AWOL Fishing Charters. And then from that, I built my website and I called it AWOL Fishing Guide. So the absent without leave fishing guide, kind of, and of course my wife, like you said, I go fishing on my days off. Well, I mean, she's not super excited about it all the time. Yeah.
And that's a big reason why sometimes we all want to run. But anyway, tell me about these early years and your grandfather.
So, he was my big inspiration. Always told me all kinds of fishing stories, and he kind of chartered the boat out from Boca with one of his buddies and ran some charters out of Fort Lauderdale. They kept the boat up the New River by the Andrews, and, I got some old pictures of that. And so that kind of inspired me to fish. And of course, we did all kinds of family camping trips. We used to go to Sebastian and dig clams and fish the Sebastian Inlet and go shrimping. And we'd fish in Stewart and go to stay at the Sansprit Park and to the Keys. We went to Chokoloskee a little bit. And so just growing up, I just kind of fished all the time. And I don't remember how or why or what, but I ended up with this little 10-foot Jon Boat that my mom and dad gave me. And we lived in a little neighborhood out west Fort Lauderdale that was kind of a new neighborhood at the time. There's 3 public schools that were right there. So we could go from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade to all those schools, and bunch of young families, and there was canals all around through the neighborhood, and the C-13 canal ran out to the Everglades. So I guess I just kind of paddled around in those canals for a few years and bass fished, but it was easier to just go down and we could fish in everybody's backyards and from the bridges, and we just bass fished all the time. And then I got a 4-horse motor. And of course I brought the boat on all the camping trips. The thing went with me everywhere. Then I got the 4-horse motor. Well, good thing there wasn't cell phones back then, because I got news for you. They would have never let us out if they'd have known we were clear out from Lauderdale Lakes, like where 441 is in Oakland Park Boulevard. We'd go all the way out to Markham Park on State Road 84, out where the levee is. Like, I don't know if you know where Markham Park is.
Yes.
It's out by the toll booth out there, basically. So we'd once in a while venture all that far out. So I had a buddy of mine had a 12-foot Jon Boat with a 4.5 Mercury. Oh, yeah.
That was a game changer.
Oh, God.
Talking about freedom. It's like getting a bike.
Oh, we were everywhere. We mostly went to Inverary. I don't know if you know. It's a golf course community. Yeah. So we used to go there, and they had these big lakes, and we'd just leave there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go out there and fish all day long, sneak out onto the golf course and fish the golf course lakes. And then eventually we, migrated to the east part of town, and we found a place where we could walk our boats. We had our boats on shopping carts. We cut the top of the shopping cart off, and it would just be the bottom frame with the wheels, and put some 2x4s over the top of it, slide your Jon Boat up on it, and walk it down the road to the bridge or wherever you could put it in.
Oh my God. Yeah. How awesome was that?
Take your dolly and throw it in the deepest weeds you could find so no one would steal it. And that was it. Yeah.
How old are you at this time? 12?
I think I was like 10 years old. Yeah, from like 10 to about 14 or so, 15. Once I could drive, I had another boat that it was like a Hughes. It said a Hughes on it. I don't know what it was. I didn't know anything about flats fishing then. For me, it was, I knew a little bit about offshore fishing and what I did with my family, but I didn't know anything about
skinny water,
flats. Right. Fly fishing was trout. We had a fly rod, but it was just whatever. Nothing.
What fish did you target mostly? Like bass?
We targeted bass.
Now, did you ever see the big grass carp that were out in
I don't
Griffin
know
Road and that kind of stuff?
I don't think they were in there back then.
Right.
In Inverary, that's the C13 canal. It's just a different canal from the Griffin Road canal.
Sure.
I'm sure they're all... I remember when the Oscars started showing up in the canals.
And what about peacock bass?
They weren't around.
They're not around back then.
They were started off like in Miami, I guess. And then now they're all the way up through Palm Beach.
So you had that boat at 10. When did you gravitate to the next size boat? Maybe when you got a car?
It was that Hughes.
So you could. That was on a trailer.
Hughes.
It was on a trailer, and you could. That's when you got into the flats.
I got a
scenario
boat and a trailer for $300, and I put a 20-horse Merc on it, and we ran out there. We ran, did the intercoastal, a little bit to the Keys, but.
And what kind of fish were you chasing then? Did you gravitate
we started
to tarpon
working on
and
tarpon
kind of
and
stuff?
snook and
right.
A lot of bass fishing though. And unfortunately, we were chasing women and skiing, and of course I was had to be the good kid too. So I was involved with sports in high school and getting good grades, and always after school. So it wound up being limited to weekends, and there's always something going on.
Was that when you first got introduced to Biscayne Bay?
Actually, it was. Oh gosh, you know what? I had a bass boat that we bought. It was just a 13-foot bass boat. It was a newer, but it was just a cheap boat. It was no big deal. It had a 35 on it. And I got a buddy, I guess we were probably seniors, and we drove from Fort Lauderdale all the way down to the Ragged Keys in Biscayne Bay in that boat in the intercoastal. Luckily, they gave us some gas at the Key Biscayne Yacht Club, because I had no idea. I didn't know it was a yacht club. I just saw a fuel pump, and we were out. Like, you gotta give us some fuel.
And you had no money.
No, probably not much.
And your peanut butter sandwiches was already eaten.
Yeah. I don't even remember getting water back in those days. I don't know how we lived. Honestly, I don't remember eating. I don't remember having water. None of that.
But you were fishing.
We were fishing. We explored that. So that came back. Lots of years went by. I went to college for a while, and that's a whole other story. But I really didn't fish. I quit college to work on boats. I saw these guys and met some friends, and these guys were boat captains at Pier 66, and I just thought, wow, that's that's like my job. That's what I want to do. I don't want to sit in the office and do this engineering stuff. I mean, I was already a co-op student for Florida Power and Light doing some of this stuff, and I saw what the other engineers were all doing and everything, and I just thought, that's kind of be boring, but God, this adventure of going to the Bahamas. So I interviewed for this job on the Gallant Lady. Southeast Toyota owned it, and they had a full crew of like 15 people, and they were going to teach me, and they liked me because I didn't know anything. I was very trainable.
Right.
And so they got me, and I started fishing for them. And one of my captains was this guy, Dickie Dickinson, good friend of Butch Constable's, and he's up in Jupiter. So anyways, he was my sea daddy. That was my first real fishing sea daddy mentor guy.
So sea daddy was the captain of
No,
the
that
boat?
was no, he's my
Just
daddy.
just a
my
term.
Dad,
You're sea
yeah,
daddy.
my
I get
sea
it.
daddy,
Right.
yeah. So and those were some really great years. We had a great time fishing together, and I learned so much about fishing, all offshore bottom fishing, all that kind of stuff.
Was he wearing a white golf visor back then?
He did. He wore a
Forever,
visor
right?
and sunglasses on top, and that's it. $10 sunglasses. You could get them anywhere, polarized. I don't even know if they had a name. They were just El Cheapos.
The Gallant Lady, they have a monster ship
Yeah.
in Fort Lauderdale. I remember fishing next to it at night with Mullet.
Yeah. That's they got the 172 still.
Right.
They use, yeah.
So, but you were a mate. You guys went around, not around the world per se, but you fished the Caribbean rim quite a bit.
We did
U.S. Virgin
some of
Islands,
that.
St. Thomas.
Yeah. We, with Dickie, we both eventually, we left that job and we moved on, and he got a job on another boat. And I decided, okay, this private boat thing may not be such a great idea. I better be prepared. I'll go back to college. So I went back to college, got a degree in economics, and I had my wife turn in my senior research paper and got on the boat with Dickie. Like while she was turning it in, we were headed to St. Thomas to do the Boy Scouts tournament one year. So we went down there for a month and a half and blue marlin fished, and came back and got a job, which was terrible.
Well, now let's go back to the mating a little bit. I remember fishing on the Real Tight with the Sportsman's Journal show that I was hosting and producing when we were working together a little bit, and we were down there and we caught these two 800-pound marlin in the same day. What was it like as a mate in the back of that boat in a blue marlin fishery?
It was pretty exciting. Blue marlin fishing is kind of slow for me. I could fall asleep in a heartbeat sitting on the back deck. If it was good, it's exciting to see them come up and get in the baits and to wire the fish up. I mean, all that power and all that, all that. It's pretty exciting. But it really wasn't my cup of tea necessarily, and we didn't really do that great out there either. It was such a great place, but for some reason it was an off year. I think the boat that won it caught 4, and it was a motor yacht, and it was kind of weird, so, the other experiences with that kind of stuff, we did some marlin fishing, but we didn't have any, what I look back at as, oh my God, I got to do this the rest of my life moments. Yeah. So.
Nikki likes offshore fishing.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I like it. Yeah, if it's calm and the fishing's good. There's very high highs and low lows. I mean, You're sitting there and you're bored to death, and you're just looking at the horizon, and then the captain goes right rigger, and it's chaos.
Yeah,
which is cool. It's very cool, but I haven't done much of it.
Yeah,
so
I
want to see the fish.
Yeah,
I want to sight fish.
I mean, that's
what gets the juices going for me.
Yeah, I can pull the flats all day long and not fall asleep. I'm always looking, always. I don't care if they're not there. I'm always got something to do,
Got to find them.
But offshore, there's really not much to see until there's all of a sudden something to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can, and if you're not running the boat, maybe if you're running the boat, you're out there, you're looking all the time. Yeah, you're doing the fishing, you're looking at the recorder, you're, all that stuff.
Right.
So
fill me in on the gap from when you're a mate on the offshore boat to when you first got your captain's license and started guiding full time in Biscayne Bay and Miami area.
Because you went back to where you got a job there briefly.
Yeah, so actually got my captain's license when I worked on the Gallant Lady. I knew I was like, I got to get my captain's license, and they were working with me. So I got sea time, which was huge. Got my license upgraded to 100-ton. Did all the fishing and decided college was the way to go. Went to St. Thomas, came back, got a job working for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco. And it's time to get serious about life and get a career and, corporate thing, right? I mean, that's what you do. Well, I was in a van with promotional things, cigarettes, going to, the little mom and pop convenience stores, Publix's, all the grocery stores and all the chains. And, well, I'll tell you, sand and handrails on a yacht is prettier than going in and out of those places all day long, juggling cigarettes, right? So I just didn't enjoy that at all. So I made that 1 year, and Dickie said, Mr. Shaw wants you to go and be our mate to go to Cozumel for 3 months if you want to go, but he doesn't want you to ruin your career. I said, well, tell Mr. Shaw not to worry about my career. I'm going with you guys. Let's go. So that was the end of that job. I went back, and actually, while I was working at R.J. Reynolds, I was so frustrated with it that I just needed to have an out. Like, I was like, okay, I got to get back into fishing here. It's been a while that I really was into really going. So I went and bought my flats boat, my first real flats boat, and my Hughes Redfisher. It was a 92 Hughes Redfisher, and had a 130 Yamaha, just the standard thing, So I picked it up. I got it from a dealer that was going out of business down in the Keys, down in Big Pine. Drove it back with my little Mazda SR5 4-cylinder truck, and had a boat that was worth more than my truck. So, which is the way it is now too, actually.
You're telling a story that it's sad to say, but a big part of the world lives. They're almost kind of stuck. Everybody thinks they have to get a job. So they get a job, they don't like it. The next job, they don't like it. They really want to be elsewhere doing things that are adventurous and exciting.
Right.
Unless you're in a position that you're steering the bus down the road instead of sitting in the back of the bus telling a story about what they're looking at, you're kind of like at the disposal of somebody who's running the whole show.
Right.
And I feel so sorry for the people that now they have a child too early. Now both parents have jobs, maybe 2 jobs to pay for the new car.
Right.
And the child is at child care periodically, and they're behind the 8 ball their whole lives. But here right. You got lucky because you realized right away you were not going to live that life.
Yeah.
And you changed it. You wanted to fish. And that's what I so love about you. And like Nikki said at the top of this podcast, is that what's so appealing about Carl Ball is that your passion to fish every day. Yeah. You just want to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
But you made that call. You made that call a long time ago, and look where you.
Yeah, it's funny how
you've had.
Came around. I mean, I didn't know anything about flats fishing. I always say, if I'd have known then, when I had that little green Hughes boat, if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have moved to the Keys probably.
Right.
I'd have been down there with my girlfriend's parents in Cudjoe Key when they had a house down there. Like, there was nothing. I always thought I was going to buy one of those lots on Cudjoe Key, and now 30 years has gone by and they're all worth $1.5 million, and there's not a chance. But
right.
Yeah, so I got the Hughes just because I needed to have something. And then I got out of R.J. Reynolds, came back from Cozumel, and it wasn't long, and we'd been fishing, fooling around, and Dickie was like, hey, I'm going to do what Butch is doing. I quit working for Mr. Shaw and do what Butch is doing and just guide and commercial fish. And a light went off in my head. I'm like, yeah, there's fishing guides in Biscayne Bay. And then I found out about like Mark Croca and Bob Branham and whoever, and I'd see those guys once in a while down there. I had no idea who they were. Kenny Collette, and so I just went, that's what I'm going to do. And I started fishing harder and harder, and I fished Chokoloskee and Lauderdale, and I just, wherever I could get a trip to go, I would start taking people. You know, you don't get any big name people really, so you don't have to worry. You know more than whoever you're taking. They don't know anything if they're chartering me.
But the fishing was also probably good enough back then.
Yeah,
you
it was.
could almost find fish.
Oh yeah,
wherever
it was.
You went.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't even.
So the learning curve was pretty steep.
Yeah, I netted mullet all the time, and we just troll mullet in the intercoastal and the river, and you find out where they're going to be, and you fish those spots.
I love that.
You learn that.
Oh, I loved learning how to do that.
That's how we kind of became friends
met
from that.
with Jon Glorieux, and I learned how to throw my cast net, and I would throw in bananas. And I was living up here in Boca at the Polo Club, and I wore a big old hole off, brown hole in my lawn, trying to learn how to throw my cast net.
Right.
And I remember the first time I got semi-pancaked, and I got like 5 mullet. I saw them shivering in my net when I was pulling up. I thought, oh my God, I got him. I can't tell you how exciting it was.
Tell the story of when you took our nanny tarpon fishing and you were netting mullet.
Oh, great story. We're down by the Sea Aquarium, in Biscayne Bay, just across from Crandon Park. Mm-hmm. So inside the little basin in there, I had my flat skiff in there, and Chrissy said, I'm going to go fishing. She said, okay, but if you go, you got to take Alex. And my son was, I don't know, very young, 2 or so. Mm-hmm. So we had a nanny at the time from England, and she was a lady that Chrissy had worked with when she was playing tennis over there all these years. So I had her with me, and we go in there, and I see a bunch of mullet. So I get my cast net, put it in my mouth. I'm getting ready. And I'm kind of drifting along, and these fish came by, and I threw my cast net, and I leaned forward when I went to follow through like this. And I stepped right off my boat. Oh. Right? My cast net goes down to the bottom. I climb back in the boat. I don't say a word. I am dripping wet from head to toe. I mean, I was underground. Get my net up, put the bait in the bait well, get my net, contained, put it in the hatch, and then I start motoring out of there. And Jenny goes, wow, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I didn't think anybody fished like that. So she thought
that's how it goes.
She thought that was,
throw the net and dive in after it.
That's just a daily occurrence fishing with my dad.
That's right.
It's just like you got to let the net get to the bottom before you can get it tight, right?
You got a reputation for flying off the boat.
Oh God,
I've seen you do it a couple times.
Yeah. What memory do you have of me flying off of a boat?
Oh, we were down in Lower Keys, and we were fishing out back. It was April, blowing like crazy, and there was tarpon coming by this spot somewhere out there. Anyways, you throw it over there and hook one, and you're fighting it, and you stepped off the casting deck or something, and I think your heel or something hit like the gas cap. And
caught my foot or something.
Somehow, it slipped and right off the side.
I know when I fell off the boat with you too. We were fishing, and I had that big tarpon laid up next to the my boat, and I stepped off the casting platform, and my foot hit the deck, and it slipped, and I fell off the boat on the other side of the boat, remember? Yeah. So the tarpon's on this side, I'm on this side, and you jumped off the tower and grabbed my fly rod. Otherwise, it was going to be gone. Remember?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot.
That's so funny.
It's amazing what happens behind closed doors.
I remember we were fishing. I don't know if we were trying to do a show, or there was a couple of us. Maybe you were just in your boat and I was in my boat. And we were out like by the Lauderdale Marina. And I didn't know you very well at all. I only been around you a couple times. And so we were getting ready to leave and go in or something. And I had a mullet on, and we were reeling them in. And you were standing there. And I kind of like flipped it over like I was flipping it at you. And I kind of stopped it. Like it just stopped real quick. Well, it popped off the hook. Like it just
hit me in the chest.
It hit you right square in the chest. I was like, oh no. I just hit Andy Mill with a mullet. I almost hit him in the face with it. I was freaking out. You started laughing. I was like, he's laughing.
Oh God, the things that happen on a boat. Let's go back to your early years of flat skiffing, guiding in Key Biscayne. Tell me about what your days were like in learning that whole fishery down there.
Yeah, so it was a long, that was a long learning curve. I think what I always said was, look, I don't know really anything about it. I didn't know any guides. And I'd known enough that I didn't want to be a spot stealer. I didn't want like all these guides that were going to see me out there eventually to be like, oh, that guy's terrible. He's the worst, you know? I mean, that's just the mentality that everybody seemed to had. It was a big issue. So I just figured if I just go out there, I won't have to ask any questions. I know how to fish. I can fish better than all these people that I'll be taking probably. So if I just fish hard and I just go and keep going, go, and keep trying and trying, sooner or later during the day, you're going to catch stuff. You'll figure it out. And the more you go, you know, obviously the more you're going to learn. Eventually you just start learning it. So that was always my mentality. And that was hard. Let me tell you. I mean, there was lots of days it was like
grinding.
What am I thinking? Like, gosh,
Holy
I mean,
cow.
it's not.
Yeah. You know,
and these clients are paying you, you know, $600, $700.
I do that with friends sometimes. It's
Yeah.
like, gosh darn it. I don't want to say, look, I don't know dick about where I am or where we're going to go, but we're going to keep trying. But now you're in a professional environment.
And back then it was easier. Like I could almost find at least some. There wasn't like there was no days when I didn't find stuff. There was plenty of that, but it was better to the point where you could pull a flat and not know whether they're going to be there or not. And there would be at least a couple there.
Right.
And you just have to really pay close attention. So that was, you know, and then kind of, I think just from reading Florida Sportsman or knowing, you know, you'd start tarpon fishing the inlet and Miami Beach and you start learning how that works. And, you know, then Glorieux came along, Andy Novak over at LMR introduced me to him. So, and they were looking for a camera boat for you. And so that's
Right.
when I got in with him and he helped me along. We talked all the time about the tarpon fishing, of course.
But I think your base was Fort Lauderdale.
It was.
And the mullet and the bait fishing there.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we first started fishing a little bit, we'd go net, you know, Whiskey Creek or somewhere when we'd find some mullet and go troll the mullet around and get these monster bites. And remember fishing on the beach, you know, all the tarpon out in front of Fort
Remember
Lauderdale.
they were there? We went fly fishing for them that day.
I got a little taste of that too. I mean, oh my God.
The fishing was outrageous.
We had good mullet runs. Remember we'd go out and the mullet were crashing everywhere and all that? Yeah, it used to be pretty good.
I remember it wasn't that long ago we were fishing, I don't know, with Lunker Dog, maybe ourselves, and the whole inside of Fort Lauderdale was covered with mullet.
Yeah.
And everywhere you could see and look, right at dark, there were tarpon flying in the air.
Yeah.
And the spray of mullet was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
They spray in your skiff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because you're trying to get by them, so they get crashed, and all the mullet are flying and showering right at you, and
Landing
they
in
jump
your
in the
boat.
boat. Yeah,
Yeah.
they come right in the boat.
I remember one time, I think I was hooked up to a tarpon with you, and the cruise ship comes by, right? Mm-hmm. We're right against the jetty, and we're fighting a tarpon. It's jumping the cruise ship. Everybody's cheering.
Yeah, right.
You know, Fort Lauderdale was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome to fish back then.
It was.
What's
yeah.
the mullet run like today?
Well, this year it was absolutely horrible. I mean, there's like hardly any. I mean, I found some. I went the other day, and there was some mullet, but they were all small ones. I didn't see big schools. And normally it was a outgoing tide in the evening, and normally you would see lots of schools getting pushed out with the tide, and the mullet are showering them by the big bridge, you know. And but yeah, I saw a few small tarpon, but I just didn't get a bite out of them. They seem to crash those schools, I think, because it's kind of you go up there and crash a whole pile of them, you're liable to get one of them. When you just got one mullet, it's kind of hard. You know, they miss them on a hook even.
Right.
So I think when those big schools are around, they're just trying to crash that whole school. But yeah, it wasn't very good. And it was just last year, maybe the year before, where I was out there on the inlet at night, and there was huge schools of bigger mullet, and they were getting showered like crazy by the tarpon. But for some reason, I don't know that it's all of a sudden the environment's collapsing and all that. Normally,
you have
in the
off
fall,
years though, and everything.
yeah, I think you're going to have an off year. It's the worst I've ever seen it. Maybe it's no big deal. You have to wait and see if next year is the worst again or whatever. But we just didn't have any big storms come up the East Coast either. Almost always every year we have like a northeast blow like 25 to 30, kind of blowing for a few days. Some kind of tropical storm moves through the Bahamas, and it happens around in September, October, and then by September 15th, there's a pile of mullet here. For sure, by the 1st of October, there's a pile of mullet. But we just had perfect, beautiful weather. No north wind at all. One short 2-day, where it blew 10 to 15, 15 to 20 out of the northeast in September.
So you think those storms push mullet down from the north somewhere?
Always.
So does Sebastian area have a better mullet run? Did they have a good run this year?
Well, there was more going on up there. I've heard a lot of good reports and seen stuff going on up there. So, yeah, I think those mullet are going to come down, right? And they're down here. The last couple of days, I've seen them in Biscayne Bay. So they're down here. They're coming, but they don't get pushed in those great big wads and show up all at once. You know, it doesn't really get it moving. But there's some here. It just hasn't been, big fish crashing.
Right. Tell me about the Everglades and what kind of a relationship you have over there with that fishery.
Well, that's kind of always been like my just personal fishing.
Just fun fishing.
Yeah, fun fishing. I've done a few charters there. I always get my guide permit because there's the Herman Lucerne tournament that I have to fish, or I like to fish and I take people. And, the swamp guides thing I fished one year, so I needed it for that. And just in case I do take some customers that, they ask about the Everglades, they want to go fish it, I'll take them over there.
Yeah. I like the Everglades.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's beautiful. There's nobody around.
Oh, man. It's,
all those islands and, the brackish water doesn't bother me. I love finding big fish in that off-color water. You have a good chance of getting a bite.
Yeah, sight fishing's not quite as good. I mean, it's different because it's snook and redfish. There's a few more of them, but there's not crystal clear water all the time. It's not like the bay, even though the bay is harder because the fish are more scarce, seeing those hermit and bonefish. I would guide over there a lot more in Flamingo and Chokoloskee.
If you lived closer.
If it wasn't a 2-hour commute each way.
Yeah. What's it like commuting every day through the Miami traffic?
Well,
it's got to be a little bit cumbersome. I mean,
it's a pain. I mean, I hate all the cars. I mean, I hate the big city. I really can't stand it.
It's crazy. You live in the middle of a chaotic world, but yet every day you're out there in the middle.
Yeah, you can. Once you're down there and you're out, I mean, it's nice. It's still pretty good fishing, and you're away from the city. You look back at that and you're just like, can you imagine what's going on in there right now? And you're out here.
It's like a zoo.
Yeah. So it takes me, if I leave right from my house to the boat ramp, it's 45 minutes. That's not the end of the world. If you're fly fishing, you don't need to get bait. And if I get bait, I can kind of get bait and be to the ramp in an hour to an hour and 5 or 10 minutes.
That's not bad at all.
And then the commute home is about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, maybe.
And you got to do the trailer, the boat wiggle to get in your lane.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do a little.
Yeah, tell us about that. So I called Carl one time. I said, Carl, these sons of bitches won't let me change lanes. And I'm towing my boat. I'm going 70, and everybody's cutting you off, and you signal. 3 miles later, your signal's still blinking, and not one person has let you in.
No, they're not letting you in.
So what do you say? You got to do the boat wiggle.
You got to give them the trailer wiggle. Yeah, you just you're swerving out of the way of a tire that's on the road, right? You give it an erratic swerve, and everything's going, and everybody freaks out and puts on their brakes. Right, slide right in. Whatever way you need to go, you're good, right?
The boat wiggle. No, that's good. Look, you caught 3 big permit yesterday.
Yeah, fishing's still pretty good.
But tell me about now you're starting to fish tournaments. I mean, I know you're fishing, you just finished the all tackle. You got 4th in that, correct?
Yeah, we got 4th overall. We caught the biggest permit, which is kind of lucky,
Yeah, but it's still, you got to be good to be lucky.
Yeah. All our permit we had all 28 to 32 inch fish. They were all pretty good size ones. A couple of them were a little smaller. But
are you gravitating to fish more tournaments?
I never, they just never had them in Biscayne Bay. Right. And I don't really know the Keys well enough to even try, although it would be fun and all that. But I don't know anybody that's going to pay you to go really fish the Keys unless it's a charity event that they just like fishing with you and they don't care. So, but we just, this last couple of years, like this is my third year fishing the all tackle, and you had to leave from the Isla Mirada Fishing Club. And now they made it this year finally virtual check-in. So I think it was back then, 3 years ago, you could actually trailer your boat somewhere and fish somewhere else. And maybe they've been doing that longer, I don't know. But that's, so we did. We stayed down there. We trailered up to Biscayne Bay and fished. And then last year they made it a little easier. And then this year it was real easier where we just did a virtual check-in. So now if some of these other tournaments, and I think the fall fly was the same way.
Really? So now you can stay home
so
and
now
fish
you
the
can
tournament.
stay home and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. No, the times are definitely changing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I never really pursued tournament fishing. I never thought I was really good enough to do any tournament fishing. To
Yeah,
begin
if you
with.
look at all the guys you're fishing against, they're
geez,
legendary guys.
Holy smokes. I mean, yeah, we did better than Mark Croca. I think he fell off the boat and got stuck in the mud, and Rich didn't know how to drive the boat to get back to him or something. I don't know what happened there, you know? But, so, yeah, I mean, if they keep coming our way, we fished that, what was it, the Legends Tournament for Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, and that was out of Key Biscayne, or
Right.
out of, they held it in, they had the captain's meeting, and the event was at Virginia Key. So that was pretty nice. You know, you're right close to home.
Sure.
And then they did virtual check-in. So everybody's concern was for Biscayne Bay that, oh my God, like you can't have 25 boats fishing that small area in Biscayne Bay. So a lot of people were boycotting it and bad-mouthing it. But it was a virtual check-in. So you could check in at Black Point or Homestead or
Key
Isla
West.
Mirada or Key West. And I thought it was the greatest thing because when we went, there was, I saw 3 other boats.
Perfect.
So yeah, the people that were the weekend people that would normally go heard how crowded it was going to be for this tournament, and nobody went. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was like having a day off and going fishing.
Yeah.
Do you think you're more of a fly fishing guide, a bait guide, or do you pride yourself in being an all tackle guide?
Well, I guess I have to pride myself in being an all tackle guide. Yeah, I just don't have tons of fly guys. I'd say at least 50% of my business is fly fishing, and the other part is bait and lures. But you know, it's okay. I don't really. I mean, I always, my philosophy is everything always works out for the best, one way or another, whatever you think, you know, and how hard you try at something. But whatever it is that comes your way, it works out for the best. And, you know, when you have those crappy weather days and you're out there and it's cloudy
And you
and
got a
it's
fly-only
nasty,
guy.
and you got a fly-only guy.
Who sucks? You're
And
like,
they
let's
suck.
just throw out a shrimp or a crab and
Yeah.
catch something.
Can't we
I
just-
know.
I got crabs they're right in there. And look at that. There's a rod right over there. You
I
just
tell-
hook one on and we could get one of those.
Yeah.
I used to tell my friends, you know, when they wanted to do fly only and it was not a fly day, and I've learned enough to be able to do some bait stuff and mullet and whatever, which I love. I said, you want to mess around and you want to catch a fish? I mean, we can do this for the next 10 hours. We're not going to see one. You're not going to hook one. And
Right.
it's going to be really a long, boring day.
But I remember we used to tell people that used to fish with us that wanted to catch them, you know, tarpon on fly, and they were like driven to catch one on fly, and we're like, well, look, it's overcast, it's blowing 20. Have you ever been bait fishing for tarpon? They're like, I don't want to catch one on bait. I'm like, I remember we were like,
trust
let's just do it,
Yeah.
and see what you think. And I remember that one day we hooked like 6 or 7, and his eyes were opened. He was like, "Oh my God,
Right.
this is probably just as cool as catching them on fly."
I
Yeah.
tell you, a tarpon mullet bite is out of this world.
That's the best.
We had one of our best days of bait fishing. We were in the lower Keys, and it was like slightly raining, not much wind, but heavy. You know, it had some heavy clouds, drizzling. It was not going to be a fly day, and so we went to Baby's Coffee, and we got some coffee. And I looked over to the bay side, and I see this big mullet mud. I said, Nikki, today is dedicated to Jose Waihebi.
That's right. I remember this
He
story.
said, what are you talking about, Dad? And on his show, I remember one time he couldn't get to the pilchards or whatever the bait it was. So he jumped out of his boat, waded in there with his cast net and the cooler out of his boat.
Right.
Netted all the bait, went back to his boat, went offshore and caught all these fish. So when I saw that show, and all of a sudden at Baby's Coffee that morning, I said, we're going to do that with these mullet. So we got the cooler out of the boat, and we waded over there. And I remember when I first started walking in, it was kind of muddy, and my sandals were getting ripped off. And so I took them off, and now it's coral, right? And my feet, I go, oh, every step I'm moaning and groaning. We get out there, we're going nice and quiet, we get out there. And I'm not a great cast net thrower. I'm okay. But I get out there after all this big effort, and Nikki's got the cooler. I'm about ready to throw it. Nikki goes, don't fuck it up. Anyway, long story short, we got, I don't know, 12.5 mullet, threw them in the cooler, went over, and I think that day we probably jumped 7 or 8 tarpon and caught
it was a great day.
Caught a handful.
Right.
And without Jose's show and seeing how he did that, there's no way. I mean, who's going to do that? But it was
you wouldn't think
so
to
perfect.
Do that. Yeah.
So thank you, Jose.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me one of your most outstanding, unusual days. I mean, that was one of our days, rainy, overcast, and we caught all these fish. Do you remember anything like that happened to you?
Yeah, I hate when people ask me my favorite or whatever. The big
or
fish
one of your
There's
favorites.
just so many things that happen,
For sure.
I don't know what sparks those memories to come back, but well, let's see. Unusual.
I'll tell you an unusual day when I called you and said, hey, we're going to fish with President Bush.
Oh, that was a good unusual day. That was a good one.
Tell me about that day and that story.
Wow, that was pretty exciting. Talk about nervous and nerve-wracking, right? Fishing with the president. So I guess we had planned it out and everything, and I went and got mullet.
Do you remember the phone call?
That you told me.
That I called?
When you called.
Yeah. Do you remember your thoughts in your mind?
Oh, yeah. I was like, yeah, of course. You're like, hey, do you want to go fish with President Bush? He's going to be here for this thing with my wife's charity event and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, of course, let's do it. But really?
No.
Lauderdale? Really? Lauderdale sucks. It's like, he's like, well, he's here and we can go down. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go do it. So it was, that was awesome. And, I went and got bait, and I thought we were going to use my boat. Luckily, we took your boat, and you had that egret then. That was awesome.
A big bait well.
Super nice guy. I wish the tarpon fishing would have been better.
Yeah, we hooked a couple.
Yeah. And I wish the people. That's the problem with Lauderdale. It's so close, and the people. And they recognize the guy. And the next thing you know, you're recognizing a guy that's been by you 4 times now. And, So
what about Secret Security or
Service?
Secret Service.
Yeah, remember the guy? He was what was that guy? The Frogman, maybe you call him. He had the dive gear on and dive
no shit.
stuff.
Yeah,
and,
they checked out the underbody. Of the
he was
boat, the hull.
with us. So we're trolling and going, and a little while later, he's like, "Hey, you guys don't really need me on the boat with you." And we're like, "No, you're kind of in the way with all your stuff. Yeah, it'd be nice if we got one on, we could move around, whatever." We didn't say all that to him, but that's what you're thinking. I'm thinking.
Right.
And so he's like, I think we're good. He got on the other boat.
Yeah, so we had a Secret Service boat that was following us.
Yeah, we had the Fort Lauderdale unmarked police boat that was following us all around.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a great story of fishing with President Bush. We were in Kennebunkport. And so in the mornings, we used to always go striper fishing in the mornings. And then in the afternoon, we'd play tennis or golf, or actually we'd go play golf, then play a little tennis possibly, and then start throwing horseshoes and have a few beers for, with the barbecue. So we were out there striper fishing, and he always had one of the Secret Service guys with us, and then they had their own boat. And we're running back, and President Bush loved to run his boat. He doesn't drive his car. He hasn't driven his car in years because, once you're a vice president or a president, you've got to be in the back right-hand corner. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time I got in the car, so they always have a driver, Secret Service in the passenger seat, Secret Service on the driver's side in the back seat. And so he sits in the corner, so he's less exposed to anybody who wants to attack the vehicle.
Right.
And I got in one time in that back right-hand corner, and he said, "No, that's my seat. I got to sit there." So for so long, he can't drive a vehicle. And driving cars is a sense of freedom. You know, and he hasn't had that for years.
Right.
And so we're in the boat, and he loved to run his boat. He had a fountain with like 3 or 4 motors, so it went pretty fast. And so we were there one day, and the Secret Service boat was like a pontoon, like an air raft pontoon boat.
Okay.
And it can only go so fast.
Yeah.
And so one day we're running back to Kennebunkport, and he said, "Hang on, we're gonna lose all those guys." So he put it in gear and pushed it forward, and the boat jumped up on plane. We started ripping. He pushed it harder. He kept going. I'm going, oh, I'm proud of this guy. He put it to the bottom, and now the Secret Service guy in our boat, now he's talking into his wristwatch. Okay. I can't remember what they called him, but he said, we're on a runaway. He was so much fun. You know, I traveled for 20 years with the guy, you know, fishing Panama, you know, the Arctic Circle.
Wow.
But, you know, outside of the office, you know, he was a guy that just liked us. You know, he loved his shotguns, and he loved to fish. One of my most compelling moments with him was at one point he was going to be in Aspen with Margaret Thatcher. And Margaret Thatcher, we had met her in London. And I think it was like 2 weeks before the event. He calls and he said, "Hey, we're going to be in Aspen, Margaret Thatcher and I, for this presentation, and calling to see if you want to go." We said, "Yeah, of course we do." 10 minutes later, he calls back. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing for the weekend?" I said, "We have plans." Because he used to always like call and say, "Hey, what are you doing 2 weeks from tomorrow?" Mm-hmm. And his inflection would always go up. So it was Andy? He'd be like, "Carl?" And that's the way, you know, he called out your name. He said, "Look, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're going to be in Aspen." They called back. "You want to go back to Washington with us on Air Force One? We'll jump in a helicopter and go to Camp David." I said, "Of course we're in." So that following Thursday, we're flying back from Canada on a private plane to meet up with President Bush and have dinner and fly back to Washington on Air Force One. And we get a call from the White House, and the White House said, "Hey, Kuwait's been invaded, but he's invited you to have your plane turn around to go to Washington. White House will pick you up." And then the following day, after the press conference regarding the invasion, he still wants to go to Camp David. So right away, midair, we turn around and go to Dulles, you check into the White House. And the next morning, he's walking down the hallway because he couldn't spend the night, but he didn't get in until like 2 a.m. or whatever. Mm-hmm. Walking down the hall, "Andy? Chrissy?" We go out, and he said, "Hey, come down at 3, meet the guys that's down in the Oval Office, and then we'll go to Camp David." Long story short, there was a mini summit at Camp David on that Saturday, and that Sunday morning, at Camp David, you have all these cabins around the property, and the main cabin is the Aspen cabin where President and the First Lady lived. So that early Sunday morning, there was a knock on the door, and opened the door, and President Bush just cracked it open, and he stuck his face in the crack. He goes, "Hey, I can't sleep. Go shoot some skeet." So we're out there shooting skeet, and then we go to breakfast. It was President Bush, his daughter Doro, and I. Chrissy was not feeling well. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's your biggest fear with Kuwait?" He said, "My biggest fear is you can't not negotiate with Saddam Hussein. And my biggest fear is that we've got to get him out of Kuwait, and we may have to go to war." And I'm sitting there as this skier, fisherman from Aspen, sitting with the most powerful man in the world talking mm-hmm. about going to war. Mm-hmm. And then after the war started, with a coalition of 32 countries in 44 days, it was over. But I knew him as the guy who liked to fish. I knew him as the guy who liked to bird hunt and play golf and play tennis and joke and have a beer.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you step across,
crazy.
That parking lot, and now you're sitting with a guy talking about going to war.
Yeah.
But he, for me, was one of the most genuine, kind, loving people on the planet. Well, I think you had a chance to see that fishing.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was going to say. Like, after 5 minutes of being a nervous wreck and not knowing what to expect out of him, you don't know what to say, and you're obviously best friends with him and things are going good, and after a little while you relax and you realize, and he's just your average ordinary guy. He was just your average ordinary guy. Like, you could just sit there and bullshit with him like no big deal, like about anything you wanted. And super respectful, not an arrogant bone in his body. I mean, I just was like, actually, you're impressed with his record as military service to the country and being the president and all that. But that like probably hit home to me more than anything, that this guy had all that, but he could still look at me, little old me, and talk to me like we were just friends. And
Equal,
yeah. No big deal. You know, it was really amazing that he was cool like that. Such a really super genuine, nice guy. Yeah.
I know. Well, look, your presence in the fishing world is well known. You've been around a long time. You've been one of the top guides in Key Biscayne, and obviously there's issues around the world with conservation, water issues, raising money to protect and preserve. Give us your relationship with BTT, Captains for Clean Water, tagging fish. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, okay. So, yeah, I first got into, selfishly, got into tagging bonefish because the University of Miami was doing it. And they had a website, and they showed where everybody stood on how many bonefish they tagged. So I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. This is, the internet's coming out, and that, this would be a good way to prove that you're catching a good number of fish. So I tagged as many as I could. And then after a while, it got to where you start talking to Mike Larkin and Jerry Olt and following the program, and you're like, oh, yeah, these bonefish are getting harder, and yeah, they need to know some information. And then it turned into a kind of a thing. You feel like, okay, I'm out there all the time. I'm kind of obligated. Let's make this happen and make a contribution. And then that turned into the tarpon tagging with the tarpon genetics people. And then BTT came along. They'd been around, but you didn't hear much from them. They were still growing, I guess. And then they came around, and they had the bonefish tagging, fin clips, and Costa was sponsoring a big permit tagging thing. So we had some competition for tagging. And so I just, kind of kept tagging and tagging and tagging as much as I could. And, it was interesting to see all the results. So after a while, you start seeing some, they feed back a little bit about where their fish was caught and how long ago. And, then, I started following it more and more. I really never thought there was much of a problem because at the time I was learning more and more and more and more, all the way from, say, when I started, obviously, until, say, 2010. I was learning more spots. I was learning how they work and how they act, and one of the biggest problems is you and I can go out there and no one has to tell us where to throw it. But these people that don't know, you have to guide them and coach them and get the boat positioned right. You have to figure out how to make that happen. And the more you do it, you start teaching people how to catch them, and your numbers start going up even more. So, then it started falling off to the point where you realize, yeah, you know what, it's not getting better. And then you start opening your eyes to realizing that, yeah, gosh, the old guys, they did see it. And that's why when you go to the symposium, and I went in 2011, and all the old guys are going, there's 90% of the fish are gone. And you're thinking, nah, it can't be. But you go out there and you realize that's the truth. Those guys, what they saw then, because I didn't see back then in the 60s and 70s, so I don't have a reference point. My reference point was that, and until I saw how it went. And now I look at it and think, oh, God, I take these young guys, and you just don't see that many fish, and they're excited because they got 4 shots or something. They're like, oh, wow, that was so awesome. We saw a school of 6 or whatever, and you're telling them, and you feel so bad, like, you don't even know. Like, and so sometimes I'll tell them about the environment, and we'll get on that discussion. But so now, I pay a little more attention. I talk to customers about it. I try to sell them to go talk to, or at least get a membership to Captains for Clean Water, or be a member with Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, and kind of follow it and see what goes on. And so, and then I always volunteer my time to tag permit, and we put some telemetry tags in some permit a couple years ago with Jake. And so anything that those guys need for any kind of research, I always try to make time to get them out there at least.
Right? And initially with the bonefish tagging, were they trying to figure out where these bonefish spawn, or what was the information they wanted to gather?
They just wanted to find out where they were going. So
Yeah.
if you tag a bonefish in Stiltsville, and hopefully it gets caught in the Bahamas or it gets caught somewhere, so they get kind of a migration pattern going on. And then it turned out that the recapture rate was pretty low, which either they're not surviving it or they're not surviving being caught, or I don't know exactly, but we just didn't catch very many of them. It was only like 3.4% of them that were tagged that we ever recaptured. And then it turned out that they were always like within 2 miles of wherever we tagged them originally.
Right.
So that probably means poor fish handling, or they
just don't get caught again. I mean, like in the Bahamas, there's so many bonefish.
Well, back then, that's the other thing. Like I think about how we handled fish back then, and we let them all go. But, you're trying to get the good picture, and, people just don't know how to hold fish, and they're going to hit the deck. Those bonefish flop and they hit the deck, and you grab them and you get them in the water as fast, and they all swim away. I mean, it was very, very, very rare that I would ever see a bonefish
They don't die in your boat
swim away.
or 10 feet from your boat. They die out there by getting shark bit or.
And pretty much, I don't care how you ever handle a bonefish. When you let it go, it swims off slow. It's very rare that they just like a permit you'll throw a permit in the water and they'll fly off. But a bonefish just kind of is like, oh, holy crap, what just happened to me? And they just kind of wander off,
What was the biggest change in your handling?
Do you use nets, or do you find handling with your hands is the best over the gunnel next to the water?
If I want to weigh a bonefish, I put them in the net and just hang them up real quick.
I think Timmy Klein and some of the guys in the Keys, like Timmy was saying, man, you got to use like gloves, rubber gloves.
I heard rubber gloves is bad.
The glove thing, somebody gave me a hard time about. A guy jumped in the water and held up a bonefish, and he had gloves on. I didn't even think about it. And he, picks it up out of the water, holds it up like that, and puts it back in the water. And they're like, oh, you got to set a better example because the guy had gloves on. It's like, oh my God, I thought he was mad because we held him up.
Right.
No, I think gloves is bad.
Really?
Gloves.
Because I remember Timmy Klein was saying I could see my handprint on a bonefish.
Yeah. Well, I got news for you. Basically, don't fish for bonefish anymore, because I don't think hooking them and reeling to the boat is a very good thing, period. Second thing is, don't touch them with even your bare hands, because I just usually will grab them over the top of the head and just pop the hook out. And I use like 2 or 3 fingers.
Just leave them in the water.
Leave them in the water and pop the hook out.
Right.
And I lift my hand off of them, and guess what? I got slime all over my fingers. So it's coming off.
Right, but what if someone catches a 10-pounder and they want to take a photo with it?
I don't even, I haven't bonefished in so long. So what's the protocol right now?
Well, I know that there's a big push on social media that if you do catch a bonefish, handle it over the gunnel. Yeah. So if they fall, they're not falling on the deck or the sea deck and ripping the
some of the obvious things.
Yeah, the slime
Make it very
off.
quick.
Yep, very quick over the water.
See, what I used to think here is before I take them out of the water, I revive them first.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, revive them before you lift them up out of the water. Mm-hmm. So you get the fly out, they're in the water, let them stay in there, let them revive a little bit, and get the camera ready. Okay, here he is. Photograph back down. He's out of the water maybe 10 seconds.
So with clients, even some of your clients that fish and know stuff, some of them, sometimes that's the worst, but getting somebody to hold a bonefish until you've showed them and they get it. I mean, I do a little different thing where I want them to lift it out of the water. I want their face to be in with it. I don't want them holding the thing like this, though, and in the boat, because I know it's going to hit the deck. There's a really good chance. So it's pretty rare that anymore you're ever going to see a bonefish come inside over the gunnel. So I get them up to the boat. And I tell the guy right away, I start coaching him. Like, we're going to grab the leader with our hand right close to the fish. And I want you to just slide your hand under his belly and right up somewhere by his head. Get him settled down. Let him settle down. Keep working it until he's there. And then just lift it up. Look at the camera. You're laying down on the side of the boat. You just lift it up out of the water a little bit and set it back down. And so they don't have to touch it. Well, I mean, by the time you circle it around a few times and you explain it to them, the fish is already kind of revived a little bit.
Right.
They're doing much better. They're kind of hard to keep on your hand because they're revived and they're flopping around.
But now you only have one hand on the bonefish because your other hand's holding the leader.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's over the water.
And it's still hard to do because people will inevitably, I don't care how much explaining I do or how long I take, they always reach over the top and they're trying to grab it some weird way. They're trying to grab the tail and they're trying to do all this stuff. If you just slide it up on your hand and give it a little lift and set it back in the water, it takes, I mean, you can hit that button 6 times in 1 second. If you just hold it up properly, you get a great picture of it. It's easy.
What kind of job security do you have? Do you think?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, look. I don't want this podcast to make it sound it's dour and it's over, because it's still great. I mean, we have bad days and we have good days.
Yeah.
But my perspective has changed.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay with seeing a bunch of boats, because we are a big promoter of what we do out there.
Yeah.
But you're not out there trying to make a living on the water all day.
No, I get that. And I can see the frustration. That's why I'm asking about job security, because you're a professional. You're out there every day.
Yeah.
Do you still have great enthusiasm for your job and what you do?
Well, I mean, I do. I always look forward to, even if I have like some guys that I like to fish with and it's going to be crappy weather, I like to go out and do that. You know,
You're a fun guy to be with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also.
I enjoy being around all these people, even if I don't know them. I've done it enough where, okay, we're going to figure this out. That's my fishing rod. That guy's my fishing rod today.
Right.
I got to go get one. So for the most part, I always enjoy it and I like the challenge and everything, but it's hard because I'm looking over my shoulder all the time for the other boat and there's not as many spots. And then you get frustrated because you do see all the boats on the same spots, the most popular spots. I have been fishing those spots forever, and this happens to all the guides. And now you don't feel like those guys are going out and finding their own thing. Like I said, when I first started, I was like, if I saw Croca fishing a spot or Bob Branham fishing a spot, I'm never going to go there. They're never going to catch me there. I'm never going to go there because I don't want a guy to be saying Carl Ball's a spot stealer.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you just expect it. It's going to happen. It's just the way it is, you know. Somebody sees you, people all talk about it. It's open. You're not going to hide anything. And there's 5 bonefish spots left. There's going to be a boat on all, and everybody talks.
You know what? That's what Bobby Branham said when he was doing a symposium here recently. He was saying he had the chart of Biscayne Bay. Mm-hmm. He had red magic marker. He said, when I first started, this was my office, and with the red magic marker, he starts scratching. This is gone. This is gone. This is gone. This is gone. Mm-hmm. And it got down to one little piece of the pie that everybody has access to, because that's the only those are the only spots where there's fish on.
Yeah. So now I'm the guy that has to go out and reforge my way and find these fish again. There's got to be some fish in some other spots.
Yeah.
You know?
Are you looking for new spots?
Oh yeah. I keep my eye out all the time.
Or going to spots that you went to 15, 20 years ago, seeing,
absolutely.
I wonder if they came back here, checking the seagrass and all that.
Yep. I kind of want to make a change next year. I want to maybe spend more time out there by myself. I've always been I need to make some money, you know. I mean, really, you got to work and make money and plan for the future and buy the next boat or whatever, right? You have to for me, I got to stay on it. So I have to explore with customers a little bit, and I have to also put them on fish. And when you need to put them on fish, you have to fish the spots that you know really well. You can't really go and explore. I could go by myself and sit on one flat all day long and watch it. But if I bring you, I'm going to feel obligated that we're going to have to go and try to catch something. We're going to go back to the spots that we fish all the time. Yeah. And I would rather be out by myself and not have any pressure and pull around and see different things.
When I first started fishing 40 years ago with Harry Spear, I asked him the same question. He says, every day I'd spend this little window of time knowing that the tide might be right in a spot that I've never fished. I'd go fish that spot. Because if you only go to what you know, you're never going to find anything new. So back then, he said, I am always looking, always trying new spots. Yep. And when you talk to Mike Guerin and and Willie Benson, all these guys that have been doing it forever, they're always looking for an edge. A little covey of something that no one knows about.
And like people make comments like, God, you fish in that weather? You're so hardcore. Like, you really go, how do you like your,
you do. You fish in the worst weather on the planet.
It doesn't matter what the weather is. You're fishing.
You know what, Steve?
I don't care.
You know what Steve Huff says about that a long time ago? Asked him about that. He says, well, if you don't go fishing, you don't get paid.
Yeah, and that's it.
If it sucks.
Like, I tell
him,
it could suck. It could really suck, but I got a couple things that might work. We should go.
No, but in reality, I got to get paid.
Yeah, right.
But you know what? You do catch. I mean, I know a bunch of guys that do very well in poor weather, just because they're there.
It goes back to this, though. Like, okay, if you don't need the money, you're not going to go out on those shitty days. You're not going to care, but you got a guy that's in town from New York, and it's a little drizzly, it's blowing, those guys, it's like 70 degrees. I got my jacket on, and he's in shorts and a T-shirt. And, he doesn't care. This is Florida. He's loving it. He wants to go.
Yeah, your crappy day might be.
He's got this weekend, and that's it. Right. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And I go, and nobody's around.
And you catch fish.
And you find out. You figure out where they are. You figure out how to get them. You drift through, you're tarpon fishing. You mark them on the recorder. Can't get a bite, you switch it up a little, you kind of you figure it out. And that's what really keeps me going too, is like that figuring out all the time. There's always that challenge that will make you a better fisherman. And
and also too, I can't imagine you getting bored, because you fish Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Biscayne Bay, Flamingo, Islamorada, the Lower Keys. We've seen you down in Marquesas,
fishing the Lower
Louisiana,
Chokoloskee. I mean, you fish everywhere, which I love. But do you get any negative feedback from other guides saying like, oh, kind of stay in your lane, if you will?
Stay in Biscayne, don't come to the Lower Keys.
I've been lucky. I eased my way down into the Lower Keys. I brought one customer down there. He'd never been down. He wanted to see what it's like. We started going. And it turned into 3 guys wanted to go check it out. So, and I told him straight away, look, I don't know it that well. I fished with Andy down there a few times. Andy and I talked about it. I did a show years ago down there with Harry Spear. I don't know anything about it. I just know that how tarpon fishing works in Miami, and like Caesars Creek area, and we need to get on the edge and find a point. And I knew you would help me out a little bit, and so I just went down and started fishing the points and the edges, the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And of course you see other boats out there, but the big thing, like I said about like when I first started guiding, I'd see a boat on a spot. I'm like, okay, I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I know that when Croca moved down there, he got his tire slashed. I'm not going to get in anybody's way. I don't want to hear it from anybody. If I was on vacation and I wasn't a fishing guide, they'd probably cut me a bunch of slack. But since I'm a guide, you never know what could happen. I'm not even going to tell anybody I'm coming to the Lower Keys except these 3 guys and you, and that would be it, So I just eased my way in there. Now I think quite a few people know about me going down there, but nobody's threatened me with anything.
No, they're all pretty cool.
Yeah, and all the guys that I now know and talk to about it, if I talk to Dustin, like I would never even know if Dustin was there or not. I just don't recognize him in his boat. I mean, I just don't know who these guys are. Very few of them. But I'm still the same way. If I see somebody out there, I'm scared to death to get yelled at, because you hear all the stories over the years. So I just ease in. If it doesn't look good, I move down the way. If it's so crowded, like we were down there one day this year, and man, it was one of those days. And every spot was taken. It was the whole entire way. And I got down there to you guys, and I stopped and I went, oh man, okay, so what are we going to do here? I can see, as far as I can see down, there's boats got to be on every one of those spots. And so I knew you guys wouldn't yell at me, and I was giving you plenty of room.
Sure.
And I just slid in there, and I know you guys were like, wow, that's not even a spot. What's he going to do? And the next thing you know, they're like well, here comes one right here.
Right.
And I was looking where they were coming from. They weren't even like coming where you guys were. They were like further out. There was some that were coming from a little.
The key, I think, is just giving space to each other.
Yeah.
Just
You have
giving each other space.
Gotta give everybody a little bit of work together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big a deal. And like that day, we weren't gonna. I mean, they probably didn't even see our fly. And actually, I think it is a spot there. I think that's a spot because there's a little bit of a shallow spot, and I got on it, and I was like, okay, they seem like they're just coming right inside there.
Well, not only do you travel, you make up spots now too.
You got to make it up as you go sometimes, and
And I can hear you now. Okay. All right, they're going to come here at about 10 o'clock. They're going to slide to the right, and they're going to come right off the bow.
That's it.
In the back of his mind,
Whatever you say, if you say it with conviction, it's the truth.
That's the truth. And how would he know?
Yeah. Well, you've had a great life in fishing for sure. You've been a great friend of ours forever.
Yeah, you guys have been awesome.
God, we smoke cigars, we laugh, we giggle, we have a good time, drink some Papa Pilar, and go catch a few fish. What's wrong with that, right?
Nothing. I was. I'll tell you, one night when you did that. The interview with Nathaniel, it was about you. And I was like, I pretty much heard all those stories. And I realized how long we've been friends. I was like, holy crap. I mean, I never thought about it. Like, you've been a really good friend to me. I remember in the beginning, I'd never call you because I didn't want to be a pest. I didn't want to be like on your heels. One of those guys. You're a big celebrity guy, right? And every year you would call me and go, hey, let's go fishing. What are you doing? I'm like, holy crap. Like, yeah, okay, let's go. And then next thing you know,
you've been a great friend.
So we've had a good run.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not over yet. As we wind this up, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I think the big thing is, as far as the conservation stuff goes, I think everybody should really take a good look and get affiliated with, at least be a member of like Captains for Clean Water. And I mean, I like them and Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. I mean, those are two, things that I think are doing the most good. There's all kinds of ways you can get involved, but I just see those guys a lot more maybe, and but they seem like they're doing really good things. I mean, it's not like a gimmick thing or anything. No, they're the real deal.
We've got some bad water out there we've got to fix, and we've got to preserve the fishery and the habitat, and it all comes down to making sure they've got a good clean house to live in.
Right.
That's first thing is awareness.
Yeah.
We need to spread awareness. That's the first thing, and the right message of awareness.
Right.
For sure. There's just, it's unbelievable the amount of people that you realize are clueless about it. And we have so many people moving to Florida now that have no idea what's going on. And they're not going to vote like we're going to vote for the water. It's just not going to happen. They think it's all great and peachy keen. They look out over their balcony out of their 20-story condo and look down and see this big giant white sand flat out there and some clear water, and they think it's beautiful. They have no idea that sand flat used to be covered with grass, and there was actually fish, not just blowfish sucking algae off the rocks at their seawall there. So yeah, the
awareness, like you said,
the awareness is a big thing, and the young people, I really got to hit the young people somehow, because
they're the new generation.
Yeah, when you listen to stories about Butch Constable and Harry and all those old guys that fished back in the 60s and 70s, and they tell you how much fish there was and how it was, and you see the development. I mean, just when I was a kid in Lauderdale in 1980, there was 9 million people in the state. Now there's 22 million people in the state, and there was all those fish. And then they started saying the decline was in the 80s. And I look back at the 80s and I go, wow, that was pretty good to me, but I didn't know. And then now you look at what's left and you think, okay, so 60 to 20,000, that's like 40, 50 years ago. It was red hot. And 50 years with the amount of development that we have, there's nothing left. There's literally like nothing left in 50 years. Everything's bulldozed. Everything's a condo. Everything's a big mansion. I mean, what's going to happen to the environment? Somehow it has to get stopped and changed and preserved. And, these are the guys that are really working the hardest at it. They're going to save it for the younger generation. But then we need the votes, and we need to get that younger generation somehow amped up and really paying attention. It's not just about no more plastic, It goes a lot deeper than that.
It's all encompassing.
It is. It's everything. It's really, I get frustrated that I haven't been more active in it. But when I look at it, it's very frustrating because it's so big and so overwhelming. It's like everywhere you look, everything you do, the humans are just wiping everything out as fast as they can, and to get up on that and see how to change that, yeah, it's a little overwhelming.
We were on the road last week driving all over the state. We're up in Destin, Naples, San Marco. And you're talking about, everywhere you drive, it's development, and people are gravitating to the state of Florida.
Yeah.
All the golf courses and the nutrients, and you can go into the sugar and the farming, et cetera. Wherever you look, there's an issue.
Yeah, there is. It's not
like
just
said,
that.
People have got to be paying attention as to, what is happening, in this state and in the waters that are our doorstep.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
We had a great run, and like I said, we were right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll always be friends.
Love you, man.
Me too.
Carl, thanks so much, man.
Take care, Nicky. Thank you very much for
When I
having me.
saw
Thank you.
West Side Story, when I saw it's just a